Hello everyone, welcome to all who are coming on today. Welcome to my replay viewers. If you are catching this on YouTube, I originally aired this live on Periscope during the week. So thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to all my first time viewers. If this is your first time catching me live, thanks for coming on. Hello everyone, and if this is your first time with me, my name is Keely, and I am the owner of LoveHopeAdventure.com, where I blog about the marriage relationship, intimacy in marriage, and how you can go deeper with your spouse. Sorry, I'm just trying to get into position today. Good morning, Michelle. So glad you're here. You changed your name. Okay, I think I'm straight. Sorry if the picture's crummy. It's overcast here, and so really it's just, oh, you did. I thought you did. It's just kind of crummy signal today, so I'm sorry. So I wanted to talk with you about this article that I read earlier, and I actually shared this article on my Facebook page for Love with Adventure, and you can go read the whole thing there. I shared it this morning. And so the article was talking about how there was a study done, I think the Gottman Institute did this, and they did this over the course of many years. They were studying couples and trying to figure out, okay, what causes some couples to be able to make it and some that don't. And they had just studied over the years all these different couples, and they kind of came up with the two basic characteristics that healthy couples exhibit, or those that are going to make it long term. And that is one, kindness, and the other one, generosity. And these two things seem so basic, guys, and that's because it is. Kindness and generosity, those are basic needs that we all desire and all want and all have need of. So if you are in a relationship with someone that you feel contempt towards, it's going to cause you to look at them negatively. Maybe you're overly critical of your spouse, or maybe they're overly critical of you. Maybe you struggle to rejoice with them about things that happen in their lives that are good things. All right, maybe you don't spend much time with them, or you ignore them a lot. Those are the kinds of characteristics and character traits of couples that didn't make it long term. And so in the study, they actually put couples side by side and they monitored all of their vitals and everything, and they found that just the two people talking, they seemed calm on the outside, but on the inside they could tell that these people were sort of in a fight or flight type of mindset, just based off of the readings that they got from their heart rate and things like that. And then they found that those couples that were able to withstand long-term marriages, they did not exhibit those same physical things while talking with one another. And they just have really figured out that the core characteristics between couples that can survive long-term is kindness and generosity. Kindness being you speak kindly to each other. You do nice things around each other. It's not just buying something for your spouse. That's not necessarily kindness. I'm not saying it's not kind to think about your spouse and go buy them something, but don't equate kindness with gifting. Kindness is so much more than that. It's a heart matter, first of all. You want to be kind to the people that you love and that you care about. And so you speak to them nicely. In the midst of arguments, they said that these couples handled arguments differently. It's not that they avoided the problems. It's the way that they talked about the problems together that was different. So they called the groups that could not stay in long-term marriages the disasters, and those that could stay in long-term marriages the masters. And they said that the disasters would approach a conversation or an argument like this. Very accusatory. Well, you were late again. Why are you always late? Why are you always like your mom? Or why are you always like this family member? Or just hurling at them a lot of things that were very accusatory. Okay, Okay, so they said that the masters handled their arguments different. They would say things like, hey, you were late again. I recognize it was probably because of something kept you from getting here on time, but it still bothers me that you're late. And so kind of the difference of the attitude for the two, the disasters and the masters, is those that were the disasters felt like their spouse was always out to get them. And so every single thing that the spouse does for in the disasters and those kinds of marriages, the one always just thinks they're out to get them. You know, we kind of have this around our house too. If Austin and we get on the defense, right? And it's like, I feel like you're attacking me. It's like, yes, I'm totally out to get you. Because it's really important that you have a good mindset. So in the relationships with the couples that were the disasters, for example, if the one person was late, if that was the problem, the other person interpreted that as they just don't care about me. They don't love me enough to get here on time. When in reality, that person was probably late for some reason without their control. Maybe it was traffic. Maybe it was just not prioritizing time good enough, but it wasn't meant as an offense to the other person, but that's how it was seen. Is that how you are in your marriage? When your spouse does something, say they come home late from work one night, and you're like, why don't you ever care about getting here on time? I made this dinner for you. Why are you late coming to get it? But you don't know that maybe your spouse had a horrible day, and they could not get away early enough to come home. And so they didn't mean this as an offense against you, but you took it that way. And now they're defensive because it's like, well, now, you always do this, that, or the other because they're on the defense. And that's the kind of characteristics that the Gottman Institute saw in couples that couldn't make it long term. And those that could make it long term, they gave their spouse the benefit of the doubt, just in general. And it's that sort of a generosity thing. Generosity in giving a benefit of a doubt, being kind to the spouse. Another thing that they said was a big difference between the two is that they called this action sort of a bidding. All right, so bidding in that, oh, look, I got a brand new dress, and I want to show my husband my brand new dress. And even if he's in the middle of something that is stressing to him, or maybe he's having a difficult day or whatever, and I come in and I say, look at my brand new dress. And he takes the time to stop and look at it. Even if that's not really on his mind, that's the kind of thing that they talked about long-term couples do well with. Bidding, like when one spouse takes the time, energy, and effort to share something with the other, no matter what place the other one is in, they stop what they were doing just for a minute and actually take a look. Somebody just saw I'm coming to the Business Boutique in Dallas. Yes, I am. So if you're going to be there, you should totally send me an email so we can meet up. Keely@lovehopeadventure.com. And so with the bidding, just having that basic generosity of saying, look, I know things are really difficult in my life right now. Or maybe I'm super stressed in this moment, but my spouse wants to connect with me, and it's just a small little thing, and so I'm going to break my attention away from this situation and just connect with him for a second. And it doesn't take that long. And so they said that the couples that were able to stay long-term marriages, they did that. They just stopped what they were doing for a minute, broke their attention from what they were stressing about or what they were looking at, and spent a few minutes just looking at their spouse. And they said that those that did not have the ability to stay in long-term marriages and relationships just basically brushed each other off. They weren't being generous or kind to their spouse. So if, one spouse says, hey, look at this cool thing, and the other one would just be like, look, I'm busy right now. I can't stop and do this. And that actually kind of really got to me a little bit because I kind of tend to do that with my children sometimes. Like after like the 15th time somebody comes to me and wants my attention, I kind of get to the place where I start exploding. Like, I do not want to look at your thing anymore, you know? And so that made me start thinking, goodness, even if this wasn't in my marriage, this is just basic what I need to be doing for my kids, you know, stopping and looking. And I'm not saying you can't ever tell your kids, hey, I've looked at 15 army guys already, and I'm trying to work right now. So can we just pick this up later? Somebody says, yeah, that's them too sometimes. I can be that way because I have 3 kids, and I have a husband, and everybody seems to like want my attention all at the same time, and it's like back to back. So this kid wants my attention, and he goes away, and maybe that one wants it, and this one. And by the 5th or 6th interruption, I'm like, stop it. You know, don't even talk to me anymore. But that's not healthy. That's definitely not healthy. It's not good for a marriage, and it's definitely not good because, see, here's the thing, guys. You know, staying in a long-term relationship with your husband or wife, those are the same relating skills that you have to stay in a long-term relationship with your children. How many of you don't have a good relationship with your parents? Or how many of you know people who do not have good relationships with their parents? Just because they're your kids does not mean you're going to have a long-term relationship with your children. You've got to work on that. You have to extend that kindness and generosity to your children just as much as you do your spouse. And when it comes to that relationship with your spouse, like that's kind of training grounds of, somebody says, I didn't when I was younger, but I do now. Yeah. So maybe when your parents were younger, they weren't handling things well, or when you were younger, but now you can have a better relationship. And sometimes we just can't live with people, and I get that, because sometimes people do so much better when they don't live with their parents anymore. They love them, but they just don't do a very good job when they're living together. But guys, it's so important because these are just basics of any long-term relationship. But with your spouse particularly, start asking yourself, what is your mindset like with your spouse? Do you show general contempt for them? Do you look at your spouse as just an interruption to your life? When they want your attention, do you begrudge them that? When they come in and they have great news to share, do you belittle it or talk over top of them? Do you refuse to be kind to them and keep your fighting and arguments with them from becoming a way that you hurt them? Do you use their past mistakes against them? Do you just in general think, my spouse is out to get me and they want harm for me? And if that's where you are today, I really encourage you to reevaluate. Because see, the one thing that the Gottman Institute did decide was that generosity and kindness, this isn't necessarily inborn in people. Some maybe have a better grasp of it just in general. Somebody says, I've been so much better with this since they quit their job because your job was killing your everything. Yes, if you've got something super stressful in your life, sometimes it is a temporary thing. But if you find that it is really dragging on, it's time to make a life change. It's time to make some differences. And when you see kindness and generosity as a muscle that has to be worked, because this is what the article is talking about. So don't think, well, I'm not terribly kind to my spouse. I'm not really very generous, which means we're doomed. No, you see it as building muscles in your body and working them. So you recognize, I've got to work towards this. I have to work to be kind. And I think sometimes we don't think about kindness as being something we have to work towards, but it is. It wouldn't be so hard if it wasn't something we actually had put time and energy into. The same thing with generosity. These things have to be put at the forefront of your mind because you chose to put them there. You've chosen, I will be kind. I will be generous. I will have a more positive view of my spouse. I will have a more positive view of my children or whatever's going on. When you have the right mindset, whether it's about relationships or your life, overall, you have more peace, you have more patience, and you just have more joy. By they talked about in the article about how these couples that did not exhibit kindness and generosity, it just robbed their marriages of joy. And if your marriage is robbed of joy right now, it sounds like to me you need to make some changes. If you and your spouse are constantly lobbing grenades at one another, and I'm not saying don't talk about the hard things. I'm not saying don't ever get in an argument. But you need to be careful how you have those conversations. If the point of the argument is, I want to hurt them, that's a problem. If the point of the argument is, I've got a real problem and I have a very strong opinion about this and I want to work to a solution, and that's what we're going to do, that's a very different conversation. So guys, that's kind of what was on my mind today. And somebody did mention that I will be going to the Business Boutique in Dallas. If you follow Crystal Payne, you'll know that she spoke there this past week in Phoenix, and she is the Money Saving Mom. She'll be speaking at this event along with a group of other speakers. So I will be away over the weekend, which makes my scope schedule going to be kind of weird. I should be on tomorrow, like usual, but I wouldn't hold your breath on Thursday and Friday unless I get on at the conference and I might get on at the conference and just show you guys some things if the signal's decent. Who in the world even knows? So, guys, thanks for joining me. If you want to know what I've been blogging about, go to lovehopeadventure.com. You can always send me your messages and questions to Keely at lovehopeadventure.com. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon.